Okay, here we go then. I knew we were going to get a load of these type questions about the state of English football and the perilous situation that we kind of appear to be in right now. I'll just try and acknowledge all the questions, then I'll try and answer there. James, do you think the structure of our pyramid needs looking at, and some suggestions there? Dan, how have clubs without parachute payments actually managed to get up? Gary, views on parachute payments. Paul, do you think they should stop parachute payments? S. Morris, if all three teams get relegated again, how would you change the Premier League? Moze, how do we fix the gap between Championship and the Premier League? And Map, how do we solve the broken football pyramid? I knew, given our subscriber base, that we were going to get that type of question. So, look, obviously, it's a long, drawn out answer here, but I'll try and talk about some of the points there. The first question there from James is kind of asking about the actual structure. I don't have a massive problem with the actual structure, as in 20 team top division, 24, 24, 24, and a 92. I mean, I don't see why we couldn't have parity and have 24, 24, 24, 24, and it would become the 94. I know that would trigger a lot of people who like the number 92. I get the idea. The Premier League wants to be more exclusive, but I don't know, you tell me. It would be nice if it was even, and I know normally the suggestions are you go for a Premier League 2 and you go 20, 20, I don't know, 24, 24, and then double National League or whatever. There's various ways of restructuring it. The obvious issue with the structure is the fact Premier League, EFL. There's your problem in absolute microcosm, isn't it? That you've got one organisation running just the top, just the most prestigious, just the richest part of it. And then you've got another organisation running the rest of it. And here's the issue. You have Narnia. You have a wardrobe where people can pass between organisation 1, which has all the money, all the stardust, all the opportunities, and organisation 2, which doesn't. So in terms of the actual structure, I don't have a problem with it the way it is, but it's the way it's being administered that's obviously the problem. Which then takes us to money, and there's like loads of questions about parachute payments there. I'll answer 3 questions about parachute payments in one go. So, parachute payments are one part of a massive problem in English football, which is cliff edges between teams essentially in your ladder, your hierarchy. It's called a pyramid, and a pyramid goes up gradually. However, it's not like that, is it? Because what we have is we have an elite who's in the Champions League all the time, who are levels above everyone else in the Premier League. We'll call them the rest of the 17. And some would argue that chasm has now been ring-fenced by PSR, where you have a club the size and scale of Newcastle with owners with more money than God, who are seemingly finding it quite tricky to step in to that kind of elite in terms of the PSR mechanisms, despite having fan base, history, very wealthy ownership, good players, good manager, everything you'd need, but seems to have been ring-fenced. So then you go down to the next chasm, which is the 17. And someone like Newcastle or Bournemouth, who's in the 17, feel like they are light years away from the elite. Then you have the parachute bunch, don't you? And they're at most 3 teams a season. And they're in this weird little ecosystem of their own. So if you take it as, and these are completely rough numbers, but say a team in the 17 who's not in the elite getting Champions League money is going to bring in £100 million TV revenue, or just say that much TV revenue, then a parachute team will get, 55% of that in the first season in the championship, and then 45 in the second. And then if they're up for more than a year, they'll get another 15%. I can't remember 55, 45, 50, something like that. I can't remember the exact numbers. But what you get then is, so here's your elite class, zillions, billions, Champions League, whatever. You're 17, Premier League TV money, rich beyond their wildest dreams. Then you get your parachute teams, which are kind of halfway in between an EFL team and a team in the 17 who's not an elite team. So on the one hand, they're complete paupers in Premier League terms, but on the other hand, they're way, way richer than everybody else in the Championship. And as I've mentioned, we're passing in between the two divisions and expecting this kind of weird system to work. So take my team, Ipswich, who is now going to be a parachute team. Under the current system, it felt impossible for Ipswich to challenge in the Premier League. I mean, they're a bit of a weird case because they never had parachute payments to get up, which a lot of teams do. And we'll talk about the problems of that in the EFL in a second. Which meant that the PSR allowances are lower, your 3-year rolling limit. For Ipswich, God, had 1 year of League One on it, 1 year of Championship and 1 year of Premier League. And you just don't feel like, let me just pick a team. Let's pick a team that are just randomly somewhere in the Premier League. Let's pick Crystal Palace. And I'm going to click on their history, which I think I know I can do on here. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So Crystal Palace have had 12 straight seasons in the Premier League. So every one of those seasons, just round it up, just call it 100 million. Every one of those seasons, if Palace have averaged 100 million TV money, they have brought in £1.2 billion over that period to finish. The highest they've finished is 10th. The lowest they've finished is 15th. So to finish between 10th and 15th in the Premier League, they've been bankrolled by 1.2 billion. And let's be generous, call the Championship or EFL TV money 8 million quid a year. So 12 of those is very happily going to land up to 96 million over that 12 years. And you can see the historical imperative of this now happening, where year after year, if you're not having to go at Palace, don't hate the player, hate the game. But if Palace have been able to build up their asset base and their squad to a point where, and we mentioned this a lot, where they can go in to the Championship and sign, Romain Esse, and just give him 2-3 years to develop. One of the best players there, or highest potential players there at Millwall. Eze, obviously, they've taken from the Championship. Sarr, but then they've had the likes of Nketiah. How much would, I don't know if it tells me here on Footmore, how much would Nketiah have cost Palace? I'm guessing 30-40 million quid across that transfer. No, it doesn't tell me there the exact fee, but you take my point that it becomes very, very, very hard to compete. So on the one hand, you have a team that comes up who, and I mean, I get that some people will say, "Oh, Ben, why are you talking about parachute payments? They get 100 million quid TV money." Yeah, they do, for that one season, and PSR is a struggle, and there's a big squish in terms of how you can spend that, and everybody else has got, 8 players who would immediately get into your, or rather, let's flip that conversation. Your 3 best players would all be on the bench for Crystal Palace, basically. That's the level you've got to kind of, make, because we've had this Premier League EFL thing. So then you get these weird stasis then, don't you, so it'll be Ipswich, Leicester and Southampton next season who will be receiving, say, 55 million quid parachute payment, while everyone in the Championship gets 8 million. And it has a ridiculous distorting effect then on the Championship, doesn't it? Where Sheffield United last season, for example, in January, signed Tom Cannon for £10 million. And they will be competing against, I don't know, Sheffield Wednesday, whose probably top transfer fee was £250,000 or something like that. So, sorry, I didn't mean to put the two Sheffield clubs against each other there. But so my point is, when you're talking about parachute payments, you've got to acknowledge the chasms. So elite, rest of the 17, parachutes, EFL. And then, I think it was Simon Jordan who mentioned this, it then does go on. People who support Championship teams who are moaning about parachute payments need to understand. I think he said the number was 80% of the EFL's money goes into the Championship or something like that. So then the chasms continue further down below the teams that are non-parachute teams in the Championship. So you have ridiculous chasms all the way down where if you're a member of the 17, you feel you can't compete with the elite, but you're massively ahead of the promoted teams. If you're a member of the parachute cartel, you feel like you can't compete with the 17 and definitely not the elite, but you're light years ahead of the rest of the EFL. And then maybe there's the argument, I don't know whether it's light years, but you're certainly financed far better if you're a member of the Championship than you are a member of League One. But maybe we get into a more realistic situation. So for those people that say, sorry, let me just drink my coffee, parachute payments distort the Championship, yes, you're right. Yes, they do. For those people who say parachute payments are unfair, yeah, they probably are. And the whole chasms are unfair all the way down. Here's the problem. For those people that say parachute payments distort and are unfair, therefore we should remove them, I don't think that's the solution, is it? Because if you were to remove the parachute payments, essentially you would then have elite, the 17, and the argument for parachute payments is it allows Premier League teams to challenge, and then if they do get relegated, sign contracts, you know, that they can then, if they have to keep a player and they can't sell them, they're not going to go into administration when they get relegated. If you remove the parachute payments, essentially you just have two chasms. You have elite to the 17 and the 17 to everybody else in the EFL. And if it seems impossible now for teams to come up, remember the last 6 that have been promoted have all been relegated in the first season, that would essentially make it even more impossible. I think so. Yes, I agree that we've got a massive problem and, there's distortions all the way down, but simply removing parachute payments, you may as well go to your Super League and just have a 17-team Premier League and not bother with promotion or relegation, because it feels like it's going to be, impossible for teams to compete who go up. And this is the big kicker. What will it actually take for a team in the Premier League to get relegated when, as I've said many times on this channel, a lot of the teams in the Premier League have been utterly dreadful compared to what they should have done this season and been miles away from being relegated. So what's the solution? Well, that seems impossible as well, because you have got Premier League and EFL. And the Premier League obviously do everything they can to look out for the needs of the teams in the Premier League. And that can come across as at the expense of the EFL. So what ideally we need is, and I get it, I don't think anyone has a problem that if Liverpool win the league and Southampton finish 20th, that Liverpool are worthy of making more money and more income than Southampton. I don't think anybody has got an issue with that, have they? But it shouldn't be that, I don't know, pick another Champions League team who's here is then a chasm, a league above just the team that's one place lower, or the team who's 17, which actually happens to be Spurs this season, doesn't it? Compare Spurs to, it's a bit of a clanging one, to Leicester in 18th. It's an absolute chasm. So is there a way of distributing the money in a more even way all the way down the pyramid? Sounds very simple when you say it in one sentence, but why would a team in the Premier League, and this is the problem, is the voting rights, isn't it? They would have to vote to have less money. No one in human history has ever voted to have less money at any point in any time, have they? Surely not. That's just not a thing that happens in a capitalist society. So, I don't know. People will talk about independent regulators, but in terms of the problem, it's all about the distribution of cash. And dare I say, could you ease off on the PSR rules if the distribution of cash was better? I don't know. I don't know what tweaks you make. Certainly the idea that promoted teams come up and the PSR rules mean that they can spend less than the established teams is completely backwards. And someone said to me the other day, they said, why don't teams just get their parachute payments when they go up? And I kind of, it was a bit of a clanging backwards thing, but I kind of got what he was saying. But obviously parachute payments are, ultimately for teams that get relegated. But should promoted teams get a bit of a bonus at the start to give them a chance? I don't know. Again, why would Crystal Palace or Brentford or Bournemouth vote for that though? So I don't know. All of these miraculous levers we're trying to pull wouldn't be an issue if the team at the top made this money and gradually we cascaded down. So the idea that Sunderland could have a good season, get promoted, and then actually have a go at it without this ridiculous dance that the likes of Ipswich are going to be doing this year of, okay, we get promoted, right, we build loads of assets and we know we're going to get relegated. We're probably going to get relegated. Might survive, you never know. Didn't. We come down, right, we sell this player and this player. We know we're going to be completely dominant now because we've got parachute payments in theory. And we come up again and we might get a bit closer, but we might also get relegated. But if we do that 3 times, we might survive. That's dumb. It's the dumbest system I've ever heard, isn't it? Surely it should be that if Leeds and Burnley have just scored 100 points in the Championship, surely they should have a better pattern of play and winning mentality than Spurs, Wolves and Man United. And they should have a chance of leveraging that next season to be able to compete with them. We'll see if that happens, won't we? So, lots of questions about the pyramid. Lots of questions about the parachute payments. They distort. What's that song? They distort and derange. Like Love is a Stranger, isn't it? Eurythmics. They distort and derange and they are unfair, but removing them won't solve anything, I don't think. It might even make things worse for more teams. And I get it. Very easy for me to say the 1 year now my team has got the parachute payments. But I think we have to be very self-aware. And if I am a genuine football fan who cares about the ecosystem as much as they care about my team, then you've got to be honest and say, well, yeah, of course, it's a massive advantage to have parachute payments and completely distorts the Championship. What were these remaining questions there? I think we've done it, haven't we? How would you change the Premier League? Yeah, I think we've done it there. Fix the gap. 50+1 rule. I think it's all down to the distribution, in my humble opinion. But there we go. It got very serious to end the Q&A. Get your comments in on that.